Do you judge the value of your moral and ethical character based upon whether or not you've purchased a piece of children's entertainment? Well, Vox does with the brilliantly titled How the Harry Potter video game became an ethical minefield. Because, screw the Gordian knot. I think, therefore I am. Oh, no. The great question of our age is whether or not you've paid money for Hogwarts Legacy. This game really is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? As the sheer amount of psychological trauma it has inflicted onto the wokest horde is just... It is a study in and of itself. Like, this should be a philosophical discipline to fully understand how so much damage can be inflicted by a collection of pixels. So, this rather lovely little article here does a very good job of encapsulating just how we arrived at this ludicrous point, frankly. It was posted in the super secret conspiracy chat by Sargon, who's probably going to be doing some sort of Lotus Eater thing on it, or at the very least, you should, Sargon, because this is funny as all hell. But, I am going to do one too. So, let me just begin. One of the reasons why we're even here, why we're having this discussion, why Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy became an enormous controversy, is because we are currently living in an age where thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds, millions of 20 to 30 somethings who have grown up with a Harry Potter's book have elected to construct their entire moral and ethical framework on a set of books aimed at 8 to 12-year-old children. And, well, it's had some side effects, as it turns out. One of which is the inability to view morality as anything but a pure, undiluted black, unvarnished genocidal evil, or pure, undiluted, puppy-cuddling goodness white. What could possibly go wrong? In fact, the article will even end with this very point that morality is either pure good or pure evil. And, well, the tragedy is that the pure good may occasionally have to tolerate the evil. Okay. Let's get into the madness, shall we? Hogwarts Legacy is one of the most anticipated video games of all time. I don't know if I'd go that far, but fair enough. Whether or not you play it is a question of morality. I mean, at the end of the day, anything and everything is a question of morality if you break it down far enough, but the fact that we've arrived at this... Oh, if you play this video game, you are indeed a very bad person. And hey, this isn't like good back in the good old days where people looked at people using Macs and went like, you snobbish sack of shit, and they looked back and going like, you ignorant Neanderthal. This is serious. They believe this nonsense, as difficult as that might be to fully fathom. On February 10th, the Warner Brothers released the video game Hogwarts Legacy, an open-world role-playing game. RPG. For the average Vox reader. Set 100 years before the events of Harry Potter, so far reviews have been solid. Glowing, in fact, I'd say. The game is by no means groundbreaking, relying heavily on the conventions long perfected by other RPG fantasy franchises like The Witcher, Assassin's Creed, and The Legend of Zelda, where players control one main person who explores a world full of other characters who can either present them with quests or act as an obstacle to be defeated. I mean, yeah, that is sort of pseudo that is a definition of RPG, absolutely. Rather basic one, and hey, I do agree, like Harry Potter is nothing particularly groundbreaking, but for a fan of the franchise, I imagine it will be an absolutely incredible experience, honestly. Well, I suppose depends on the definition of fan, because, well, here's the thing. You can be an anti-fan of something, you can absolutely hate the thing you are a fan of, and still be deeply immersed in that thing. You can still be an enormous consumer of that product, but if you hate it, and it is subservient to your greater good, your political ideology, then you are an anti-fan. But whether it is good or bad, or even solidly fine video game, is not really what people are talking about. That's true. When they talk about Hogwarts Legacy, since the first rumbling of its existence all the way back in 2017, its official announcement in 2020, the game has sparked intense fury and speculation over how it would distance itself, or not, from the hateful rhetoric of Harry Potter's author, J.K. Rowling. Ah yes, we arrive quickly to the question of Satan, the devil, Beelzebub, original sin herself, J.K. Rowling. I do love how this woman, who was the absolute darling of the left, a woman who has spent uncountable millions on charity, is now the personification of evil. Again, as I mentioned, pure black, pure white. Rowling has, over the past several years, proudly aligned herself with trans-exclusionary radical feminism, referencing a Vox article, by the way, or TERFism, which maintains that trans women are actually men who seek to invade women-only spaces and oppress them yet further. Because remember, the TERFs are a gender supremacist movement. This logic has no basis in reality. And as Kate Lee Burns previously noted for Vox, another Vox reference, TERFism effectively functioned as a hate group, targeting one of society's most vulnerable communities. Now, I, personally, would be a bit careful of accusing J.K. Rowling of being a one-woman hate army right now, as she has apparently perfected the spell Abracaloya, as recently demonstrated, where she threatened one screeching activist who had called her all manners of name and asked that she be burned alive on a pyre with legal action. And, after a short period of time thereafter, the screeching activist came back with an official and very formulaic sounding apology. I wonder what could possibly have happened there. Much of Harry Potter's enormous fanbase has spent the intervening years reeling from the realization that his beloved author could harbour such abhorrent views. You mean the views of the general public, but views that, interestingly enough, because here's the thing, right? The most vulnerable communities. Speaking ill of the speaking ills of transgender people, well, that's a hate crime in many nations and can land you in literal jail. Vulnerable communities and all that. Such abhorrent views, particularly one whose books explicitly champion progressive values. I'll stop you there, and I'll allow you to debunk your very own thought there. But the attention of Rowling's beliefs about trans people has reignited conversation about her portrayal of other marginalized groups within her book series, namely her tendency to call non-white characters stereotypical and offensive names, the most egregious being Cho-Chang. I mean, Ping Pong would have been worse, and funnier in my opinion, whose name is actually two last names of completely separate ethnic origins. How terrible. And the black character Kingsley Shacklebolt. And of course, she also frequently uses anti-Semitic dog whistles like the Goblins, whom the left had determined are Jews. Which is only mildly funny, by the way. Because here's the thing. These explicitly progressive books have apparently got a ton of explicitly anti-progressive shit in them. Because, of course, they are not explicitly progressive. They are children's books. They don't really say much about anything beyond the most basic baseline veneer of morality, like, like your friends, don't like the evil mass-murdering psychopath. But again, this is progressive morality right here, and this is again the anti-fan invasion. This is a group of people who have moved into Harry Potter, and to be fair, they probably moved into Harry Potter on the ground floor. You could say that Harry Potter is a bit of a unique entity in that it was in many ways built atop the anti-fans themselves. But right now, their primary interest in Harry Potter is not Harry Potter. It is their political activism. And again, to be fair, considering the absolute massive failure of their attempts to boycott, the anti-fans have yet again proven themselves to be a vanishingly small minority out of everyone who's actually playing and enjoying the wizarding world. Because when you place identity politics above a setting, you're not a fan of that setting. It is a tool for you to use. All of this made Hogwarts Legacy one of the most anticipated video games of all time. Yes, all of the anti-Semitic dog whistles made Hogwarts Legacy one of the most anticipated video games of all time. Which is true, as the game saw a remarkable increase in sales when it was mentioned as an when it was tagged with transphobia and genocide simulator. The best part is it's true. I am laughing to the point where my nose is running. Into a deeply fraught topic for many fans. The fact that for many fans, like the weasel words, many fans, many of us, many fans, your boycott failed. Disastrously so. You are not the many fans, you are the screeching minority. Accept it, embrace it, take the L, and spin on it. The fact that Rowling will profit from the purchase of Hogwarts Legacy is reason enough to boycott it. If anyone makes a new Harry Potter anything, it will clearly broadcast the message that Rowling's views aren't abhorrent. Correct. That you can demonize trans people as mentally ill sexual predators and still continue to have a voice, a career, tremendous social influence. Because remember, if you are allowed to say anything negative about the most vulnerable group in existence, you must be yeeted from the universe. Because that's how weak aforementioned group is. And again, anyone other than J.K. Rowling would already have been cancelled and out of a job because, again, victimhood is a very powerful currency as it turns out. Wrote another Vox article. Vox referencing Vox and how Vox feels about the topic Vox is currently discussing. Now, that is in fact a new Harry Potter property. Professional video game streamers, games websites, and fans have publicly clashed over their approaches to playing and reviewing it. Some are arguing whether or not fans purchase the game, Rowling will continue to be a billionaire. Actually, she made herself a millionaire through her charitable activity, which, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of J.K. Rowling. I still think she's a female supremacist and probably an authoritarian nutcase in many cases, but she has given absolutely unfathomable quantities of money to charity, and I can't really condemn her for that, if nothing else. So it shouldn't matter. Potterheads have waited decades for the ability to explore Hogwarts Castle themselves. Their logic goes, so what difference will a portion of their $59.99 make to someone with a virtually limitless bank account? Even if it ends up funding anti-trans hate groups? Ah yes, the anti-trans hate group, J.K. Rowling. Again, up like a lawyer. On the other side, many trans people and allies argue that the desire to play a video game and the desire to exist freely as trans person hardly comparable. Well, if you can again, show me the jackbooted thugs hunting you down the streets, we'll have an argument, but up until that point, a piece of electronic entertainment will remain just that, colourful pixels dancing on screen. What seems to be the underlying question, however, is this. Does my choice to play or not to play Hogwarts Legacy make me a bad person or a good person? Because again, pure as black, pure as white, there are only two things in the universe, and if you breach any standards of the wokeist horde, guess what you become? Yes, that's right, a man of Austrian descent, with a tragically failed painting career. Since 2020, Warner Bros. Has attempted to distance itself from Rowling, because they knew it would make them a target from the actual hate groups, stating repeatedly that the author was not directly involved in the development of the game. Her creative agency, however, did work with the developers on creative decisions throughout the project. It should also be mentioned that Rowling is not the only controversial part of Hogwarts Legacy, as now we come to the Troy Levitt controversy, where Troy Levitt, well, he had videos, he had a YouTube channel, you see, where he defended men. Well, clearly he can't stay, because again, the most vulnerable group in history didn't like that, and so he was yeeted off the development team of one of the most anticipated video games in history, as you said. Vulnerable. Who had been accused of sexual harassment and Gamergate. Oh, men who had been accused of Gamergate. Oh, Jesus Christ. The 2014 harassment campaign against women in the games industry. Oof. That is a damning condemnation of women in the game industry right there, as the entire point of Gamergate was to push the idea of ethical games journalism in the games journalism industry. And if women are the only person being targeted, wow, you are saying spicy things about women in the gaming industry, but, you know, hands up on that one. I believe that women can have ethics. One of his voice actors was Gregor Ellis, who publicly supports Rowling and made many anti-Amber Heard videos. Oh god, Andy, Amber Heard, that nice, beautiful woman. On his YouTube, where he regularly rails against feminism, cancel culture, and wokeness, was also cancelled. So clearly he was whining about nothing. Others have criticised Hogwarts Legacy's decision to focus the main plot on the Goblin Wars, further impressing upon the veiled anti-Semitism of the tropes they represent. I just see goblins. This is the orcs are black people controversy game, where the wokists move into D&D, see an orc and go, Negro. Well, you know, if you say so, I suppose. Warner Bros. Has stressed that it attempted to make the game as diverse as possible. That's correct. They did indeed try to paint on the thinnest, the wafer-thin-most veneer of modern-day wokeism as possible. The sheen. Oh look, they're different colors. Isn't it fantastic? Look at this character. She's from Uganda. Her mother's a witch doctor, you see. It'd be funnier if she was a shaman that called the lightning, but I appreciate the attempt, Hogwarts, of course. And obviously making the whitest character not white enough and thus requiring a mod. And also, the trans character, who has a deep voice, you must understand, and in a universe where you can literally eat candy to make yourself sound like a lion, that's a big deal. Somehow. Sirona Ryan. Now, she too was quickly rejected by the wokies for not being trans enough. She was simply a bit of a virtue signal, you see, and yeah, she probably was. Just like the diverse characters as well. Because playing through the game, I realised, well, playing my bits of the game, the wokeism is, again, it's skin deep, literally. The characters are diverse. There are very few white people in England in the 1890s. But there are lots of Indians, black people, Muslims, Arabs, everything you name it. There is every skin colour imaginable living in England, speaking English, and abiding by the cultural norms of Hogwarts by wearing their uniform. Colonialism done right, I suppose. The online reaction to the character, however, has focused mostly on her name, specifically that it seems to mirror Rowling's stereotypical naming convention. Imagine that, in a Harry Potter work. By beginning with Sir, I think the trans community can accept the first trans character in Harry Potter being named Sirona Ryan if they introduce the first TERF character in her name, Divorced. Which would be, for it is at least mildly funny. To avoid doxing and harassment. Yes, she avoids, she makes sure that she doesn't get harassed on Twitter. Good luck with that, by the way. I've received death threats on Twitter. You're not going to avoid, it's the internet. It is just what happens. It doesn't make you special. It doesn't make you particularly vulnerable. Another aspect of the game that contradicts Rowling's moral logic, and this one's actually a good point, is in Hogwarts Legacy, players are free to use one of the 3 unforgivable curses: the killing curse, the torture curse, and the spell that allows you to control other people's actions without punishment. In the books, casting any of them results in a lifetime sentence in Azkaban. Azkaban? Which is a prison where very often your soul gets sucked out. That's true. And honestly, I do think this is a thing that should perhaps be addressed upon. Should be some sort of moral system, because you should be allowed to use these spells, but it should have ramifications, because in universe, these are unforgivable sins that the game just entirely ignores. You should still be able to choose to do it, but your choice should have some in-game consequences. What was it here? In any other video game, this would seem like a pretty reasonable choice. Many of the most popular games, after all, encourage players to murder one another. But in Harry Potter, a book series whose moral code is so central to the story, where evil people are essentially eugenicists, I'd say they're worse than that, but well, it feels not only icky, but like a major break from the franchise's ethos. And there's one of the key points. The franchise's ethos. The ethos of a children's book series. And again, I return to this point again and again to make a point. You are building your view on ethics on a book series aimed at 8-year-old children. The world doesn't work like this. This is why your, at the end of the day, question is good or evil. Because you clearly have never developed the moral or ethical sensibility to view the world in anything but 2 shades. There's a phrase that has become commonly used in situations where a lot of people want to buy something they know they shouldn't. And now we come to communism. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Okay, so the point they're trying to make here is that the line is more often used today to mean its inverse, that there is no unethical consumption under capitalism, therefore nobody should feel bad about the things they buy because it's all bad anyways. The article tries to explain this, and to put it very simply in the communist point of view, capitalism, pure evil, again, A and B. Therefore, any engagement with the capitalistic system, no matter what, is immoral. This is the Vortian position of buying a new computer is exactly the same as buying child pornography. Because money is changing hands. It is a ridiculous notion on the face of it, but hey, it's communism. What else did you expect? And the article is making the argument that in reality, the argument is being used to say, okay, well, if everything is evil, then nothing is evil, giving me moral carte blanche to do anything I want, which to be fair is very progressive. As most of the time, hypocrisy, weaponized hypocrisy, is one of the few recognizable and universal hallmarks of all forms of wokeism. You can imagine this sort of copypasta can be used to justify the purchase of Hogwarts Legacy. Sorry guys, but I'm forced to buy this game twice and also any DLC released, as well as the new movie and scarves, and of course the box set in Rain Puff colours, blah 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 blah, quoting a tweet. The no ethical consumption of the capitalism defense is also almost always a pretense for the real reason someone willingly give money to a proud transphobe. A proud transphobe. That's a good title. They just really want to play the game, and the consequence of this choice will always be invisible to them. Well, yeah, they really do want to play the game, and the consequences of their choice is nothing. Zero, zip, nilch, null, nothing whatsoever. And, okay, to explain this too, you might be wondering, why do these people feel that they are entitled to J.K. Rowling's money? It's a ridiculous idea, right? If I give this person money, and she uses it for something she wants, then hurts trans people. How? Is she, building gas camps? Because if that's the case, then I can see the argument. Like, if there is a Gasmarkt Frei camp in Britain, outside of Bristol, presumably, where they're just shipping off trainloads of trans people every day, I'm beginning to see your argument here, but that of course isn't happening. So what is the argument for how J.K. Rowling is hurting trans people? How she's literally killing them, as we've seen many argumentations of? Well, This is going to require you to turn off your brain for just a quick second. The reason for this, from the progressive mindset, is that J.K. Rowling is spending her money on things that does not explicitly benefit trans people or the wokeist cause, or indeed socialism in general. She spends her money on things like charity programs that benefit men and women, for example, like hospital programs for children. And since these are not used explicitly for trans purposes, they might then be viewed as excluding trans people. If she gives money, for example, to, I believe this is an example that Dev once used, and is a good one, so I'm going to steal it, on a woman's shelter, then her definition of woman being adult, human, female, then that would exclude trans people, thereby lessening the amount of resources available to trans people, thereby killing them. Makes sense, right? Not really, but well, details. Since she could theoretically spend the money on saving trans people, saving, quotation marks, she is thereby, by not doing so, choosing instead to kill them. I know, that's why I asked you to turn off your brain. You can turn it back on now for a second. Consider the many viral tweets that attempt to work out this logic. If you buy Hogwarts Legacy because you're excited to play it, you aren't transphobic. But if you boycott the game, you're not a bad person. If you call someone transphobic for buying the game, you're an asshole. If you're saying you're buying it off to piss off the libs, you're an asshole too. One person compared the decision to play the trolley problem. And IGN, of course, made a big coping post about it in their review of it. All of it is, well, it is literally just justification. And it's true. It is all a form of weaponizing hypocrisy. It's saying one thing and doing the opposite. Because again, hallmark of the wokeist horde. This is the unspoken undercurrent of nearly all Hogwarts Legacy discourse. The misguided need to be considered a good person even if you buy the game. In some ways, this makes sense. In American culture, where spending money is essentially our greatest form of power, of course we equate consumer choice with morality. This is not a capitalist value. Capitalism does not put inherent moral value on the simple spending of money on specific products. Don't try to make this an American problem. A lot of the people bitching about this are not Americans. They are communists. That is the difference. And in an economic environment where the value of a dollar is declining alongside the power of the working families, it is easier to unleash our frustration on each other than it is to try and dismantle the system. True. It's easier to be angry on Twitter than it is to take down the United States government. Now, I would point out that you are doing the exact same thing by whinging in an article, but details. Elsewhere, the most vulnerable community raised $60,000 for an explicitly transgender activist charity as well. By the communist logic, doesn't that mean that they're killing women and children and men and everything? Well, yes, but again, weaponized hypocrisy. It's fitting that Hogwarts Legacy has incited so many heightened emotionally fraught reactions. The Harry Potter universe is one in which there are Death Eaters and the Resistance and very little in between. One where 11-year-old students are sorted into houses based on their characters before they've really developed them. It's nearly synonymous with an entire generation. Yes. It is... That's the point I talked about at the beginning. The article writer believes that a universe in which there is pure good and pure evil, that is synonymous with the current generations, with the millennials whose worldviews were formed based on the choices that Rowling made. The problem is, the regular world isn't Harry Potter. By playing or not playing the game, no one is going to brand you with a dark mark or induct you into the Order of the Phoenix. And you can tell they think that's a problem. As the game lead's designer said, if you want to be evil, just don't expect anyone to congratulate you for it. And again, so we return full circle. The entire problem here is that you have people like this who genuinely think that the world should be divided into good and evil, and that there is no discernible or valuable distinction between the two whatsoever. And any violation of dogma no matter how circumstantial or minor, will place you on the side of Beelzebub and the Austrian with the paint set. Because, again, their morality was constructed on the basis of a book for children. Small wonder the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Or, well, it might be righting itself eventually, as even the most ludicrous nonsense merchant will look at this and probably think to themselves, do I want to pay $120 a year for this? Probably not. Even better as well, you've read 3 articles in the last 30 days. That was this article and the 2 articles that Vox linked to in their Vox article. Oh, good God. This is the reason why the Harry Potter video game has caused such a stir, such a controversy, because it is their world view turned upside down. It is their personification of pure good turned to the cause of enriching the person they think is pure evil. It is the thought of every activist who purchases a Palestine scarf and then uses it simply because it looks cute at the cafe. It is the understanding that your entire moralistic worldview is as shallow as a piss puddle. And that most people probably know that that is exactly what it is. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.